Well, TV land can relate to the real world. I mean, it
TV
could.
land.
It parallels, right?
I don't know. I don't live in the real world.
Well, there you go. So that's why you're here.
Welcome to the edge of nowhere. Monster Lore Tour Podcast.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Monster Lore Tour Paranormal Deep Dives from the Edge of Nowhere podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Carr, here along with my co-host in the Rosencrantz to my Guildenstern, Mr. Matt Ozero, a.k.a. the Moz. How we doing today, Moz?
I was doing well, but both of them don't do so well in that play.
No, as the title of one of my favorite movies says, Guildenstern and Rosencrantz are dead.
Yeah.
It's a great movie.
Well, it was a great play, I believe, as well. Probably before the movie.
The whole world is a stage, and all of us just lowly players.
Mm-hmm. No, I'll agree with that. That's Rush, isn't it? I think.
Why
if
is
you
that?
look at the original source, it was Rush, not Williams.
Anywho, so we are jumping right back in, and on our timeline, it's only been about half an hour since we finished the last episode, because these two-parter things we like to bang out all at once sometimes. So Moz is back in control here. We are still on our Skinwalker saga. We do have one piece of old business from last episode. We haven't had much chance to work on it, considering it's only been about half an hour.
It's been a smoke break. Yeah.
Basically a long smoke break.
Yeah. Is it about Gilligan's Island? Because I'm ready.
Well, no, it's about the word.
The word.
The word.
The word.
And I'm not talking about bird.
Okay.
I'm talking about Cicer.
Oh, the Cicer. Yes.
Have you had a chance in the last 30 minutes to come up with something better?
Let me explain for those just joining us. Anthropologists have really dropped the ball on dark shaman or light shaman or shaman. It doesn't explain, or black shaman. All these things don't really work. A dark shaman is going to the underworld. A light shaman is going to the upper world,
but it
doesn't mean evil. Yeah,
it's not a correlation of good and evil, light and dark.
It's kind of the colonizers trying to just do their thing and not really getting what's happening. I don't know why they haven't come up with this word yet, but you said Sith, and I said sorcerer last episode. So I think an actual dark shaman who is evil is a Sithirer. I'm running with Sitherers. I'm going to run with that one.
It's wow, that's a tough word. All right,
Cicer.
We'll go with that until we come up with something better.
What do you mean? I am running with Cicerers. I think it's fine. It's the two combinations.
You're gonna hurt somebody running around with Cicerers.
Well, I'm just
saying. It just makes everyone sound like they have a speech impediment.
It explains the sorcerer component, the Sith component of a shaman. When a shaman goes bad. And they've never distinguished that. Even in the anthropological papers, they do not. The Kinema, they call it the dark shaman. What does that mean?
Right. So it's not the light sorcerer and the dark sorcerer. It's the sorcerer and the Sithcerer.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's hard to say.
We're gonna practice.
Okay.
We'll
lock it down by the time we get to the next episode.
We're gonna lock this down. Yep.
All right. Anyhow, before we really get going, you really should go check out our website, monsterloretour.com, and our member section at Patreon at patreon.com/monsterloretour. Any stories, questions, comments, email us at monsterloretour@gmail.com. I don't feel like doing the whole big spiel today, so I'm going to leave it at that.
Oh, I think we're good.
Go right ahead, Moz.
Last week, which was actually one smoke break ago for us, because we're on a different time kind of.
Oh, our timeline.
Time and space moves very differently for us.
Yeah, we loop around ourselves a lot on the
Pretty
timeline.
loopy. We mentioned loop in the lab, which is between
See?
Winslow and Flagstaff. It all comes back in a loop form. It's like, next stop, Willoughby. But anyway, so last week we reviewed some of the commonalities of the
Walker
experience and so many of the similar monsters lurking in this demon-haunted world of ours. We discussed our own related experiences, or some of them, more to come. And I created a spreadsheet, and I want to talk a little bit more about that, even though I don't have it.
Talking about how
The common
way too many columns it has.
It has way too many columns. So we need an Excel spreadsheet expert.
I just don't know how to get it on the website in a format that you can see it.
We just need a bigger website. Duh.
Oh, there you go. We need a 70-inch screen website.
It'll be fine. But from whistling to red eyes to totemism to cannibalism to mimicry, we see these themes globally. I'm not ready to actually produce it, but I want to get that on the Patreon members section at some point so people can add to it. I want references.
Right. Exactly.
I want it to be pretty.
We got to figure out the format to get it accessible on there.
Yeah. Formatting, not so much where we're at right now, but I'm going full on shapeshifter soon, so we are going to be talking about this more and more. But I want to honor the particular Volkadonken of the Southwest and get back to these skin
walkers
and get away from this global stuff. So we want to discuss them today. And I think there's a piece of it that's associated with, so some of the theories behind it. There's the peyote component we haven't discussed.
Sure. Well, we got a little bit into the psychedelic element last time.
But I want to make the point that even DMT, we have a certain amount in our brain.
Yeah.
It's out at this threshold level. When it goes over that threshold, bam, we're in another state of consciousness.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the spectrum. So just percolating just on the neurochemical horizon is this thing that I always wonder.
Ooh, so we exist on the edge of consciousness.
Right. Well, on the edge of.
And the edge is where the monsters show up.
Right. So
Ooh.
even in the synapses, where does the action happen in the brain? The space between the chemical and the electrical impulse. The synapse, the boundary. That's where the monsters are in our brain.
I'm going to meditate on that later.
Always finding monsters in the boundaries. But I want to get back to the native angle because that's where we're trying to stay today. And I want to repeat the George Knapp one, if I could, from last week. He said, while mainstream scientists are unlikely to ever give credence to any theory based on tribal lore or the black magic power of shape-shifting Indian witches, it is difficult to ignore the seeming connection between the best-known paranormal hotspots around the country and a strong Native American presence. Indigenous tribes seem to be on the edge of nearly all of these paranormal outbreaks. And later in that episode...
It's true, huh? It's really centered in those areas so much more.
Yeah, in the same book, though, George Knapp says, not even a chapter later, let me find this, he says... There's not a shred of evidence for actual, people turning physically into creatures.
Right.
And Tom Cowan's book, Fire in the Head, which you can get a hand on, it's a really great book. He seconds this notion, and therein lies the rub. There's a major paranormal and cryptozoological uptick around Native American lands and peoples, yet evidence remains as elusive as the creature itself.
Well, I mean, what evidence could you possibly have other than getting on video the actual transformation?
But we all have dash cams, we all have video. I mean, the thing back to the trail cam now, yes, we're finding some weird trail cam footage, but the Scully Muggle says we have trail cams all over the woods. Why are we not?
Not really, though.
We have
Do you
a
know
lot.
what
They
percentage?
hang meat, but we hang meat by the trail cam.
The real
looking
thing
for things.
The thing to me is, I'm hoping that this takes a turn. Like what's going on with the UFO world with all these much better quality videos coming out.
Yeah, and they don't even like meat.
Which I'll be getting into in my arc as we go here. I'm going to once it's my turn, I'm going to be starting down that road. I'm hoping the evidence will come. The camera, the thing with cameras being everywhere, people forget how new that is. It's really only been a few years in the scheme of things that cameras really are now everywhere.
And like the small town monsters folks, they're fine. I mean, people are finding
I'm
stuff.
hoping that 10 years from now we have much better coverage of this, and we do have maybe some more things that can be considered real evidence.
But
because of that.
But where you're wrong in this is you're right, but it has entered earlier. There was a Finding Bigfoot where they actually rented this camper that showed infrared the entire mountain range that they were next to. You could just see the whole thing. Drones can now fly
military
over.
level surveillance kind of thing.
Right. And trail cams are. I said this years ago. I would say 5 years ago. I said if we don't find anything, if we don't confirm anything in the next 5 years, I question it. And I said that 5 years ago. Well, yeah. Now,
give it another 5.
Again, there's a lot of folks finding some strange trail cam stuff. I'm not going to argue that. But I would just think we would have seen, if you have that picture of the entire valley, you would think you would see some hominid climbing up a ridge that could not be done by a human. You'd think that would have happened by now. To me, I struggle.
Unless they're...
The technology's there, yet we're not there yet.
Unless they're 4-dimensional or trans-dimensional sort of creatures that just phase in and out. And they know when we're watching. What if they know when we're watching and they make themselves not seen?
Like Krampus claws, exactly.
And who knows,
And one of them, you probably never heard this word before. Schizophrenoform. Have you ever come across that word?
It sounds like the name of a early days Pink Floyd song.
Yeah, exactly. It's like psychomantium.
Like Uma Guma or something. All right, hit me with it. What does that mean?
Well, basically, your first psychotic break usually occurs in late adolescence, early adulthood. And it's very common to hear your voice at that time. Someone hears someone else calling their voice. It's the predecessor, potentially, if it continues and it's problematic.
Wait, you hear your own voice?
You hear someone saying your name is very common first psychotic break.
Someone calling you out.
Someone
to the edge.
calling you out.
Gotcha.
Now, it's not necessarily, if that happens to you, it can happen to me, it can happen to everyone eventually. I think we've all maybe experienced this, and I don't want to panic people, but it can be a predecessor to full-blown schizophrenia at some point. It can be the first psychotic break.
It's one of those portals you have to go through in life.
Maybe.
It all depends on which way you come out of the portal as to which way it's going to affect you.
And if you're a shaman and you don't heed the call, does that, because there's a lot of studies between schizophrenia and shamanism. I've read a lot of them, and there's not strong correlations either way.
Well, it's altered mind states. And
right.
It's a matter of whether you learn how to control it or not, I guess, on a certain level.
Well, there's a genetic component to schizophrenia that if you suffer from this, it may not have a ton to do with shamanism. However, you cannot deny these similarities.
Well, your brain's wired for it. It exists in a different mind state than most people's.
Yeah, I don't know, and I've always been interested in this subject. I've read a lot on it. I'm not 100% sure if you got someone early enough and got them to the right. If you meet someone from Native American heritage and you get them to a shaman, can you actually... I usually work with them afterwards, and it's not...
when it's already too late.
They're on Western medicine, and it's not happening.
Wow, what an interesting experiment! Like
they've done them, so
give them shamanic training and see if it allows them
I
to
don't
start
think anybody's
controlling
done
the
that.
mindset.
They immediately start big pharma first.
Oh yeah, the West would never buy into something like that. That's
basically, they're going to give you medication before you hear your name called. You might be hearing your name called, so we're going to give you some Thorazine. That's the way we deal with things. But how would such an event be interpreted by a tribal member out on the res? Evil presence is out in the desert, and you hear your name called.
Yeah, culturally, you're going to know right where to go with that.
Now, I'm not saying this explains many sightings. Prevalence in schizophrenia is only about 1% of the population, but I thought about mentioning it because we've all heard our name called at different... I have, so I don't have the gene, and I don't have schizophrenia, but I think...
I've heard weird things. I can't think of an instance where I've actually heard someone calling my name, though.
Yeah. Well, you don't get a lot of calls in general.
Yes, nobody calls me, man. Nobody calls me.
The other piece is clinical zoanthropy. Therianthropy Society. Have you heard of these folks?
I've heard of the society, yes. I haven't heard of clinical lycanthropy, though.
So there may be people acting like animals in your neighborhood on the res because they don't identify as human. More on that when we get into werewolves, but I just want to make a quick comment about it because it's exactly what you think it is. Folks don't identify as people, so they believe they're shifting into animals. And I guess the piece I want to make a point about is when those folks are in EEG or MRI or whatever they're putting the brain scans, whatever they're undergoing.
Right.
They've kind of witnessed this cascading effect in the brain of a very strange patterns occurring.
So they've actually done the science on that, like real
Right.
brain scans, seeing the brain activity while it's happening.
Yeah, and something's happening
wow.
that neuropsychologists can't explain.
Yeah.
I'm feeling good now, but I can't explain. But
There's so little we know about our own brain. It's crazy.
But something's happening. I think they need to be validated for that reason. I think if you're looking at it and saying,
that just means there's something really going on. Just because we don't understand what's going on doesn't mean there's not something going on.
Yep. And again, we're not going to discuss this much. I want to move on, but I think that could be some of what we're seeing.
Yeah.
Is if someone doesn't identify as a person, they may be acting like an animal at night.
Right.
And it's it's not a...
It's almost a therianthropic spiritual thing rather than... Because these people don't actually transform. My computer is beeping. These people don't actually physically transform, though, right?
Again, back to Cowan, back to Knapp, not a lot of evidence of physical... Like, they don't put them in the MRI machine and a wolf comes out and eats them, the nurse. But at the same time, they're seeing something they don't understand on another level.
Come out of the machine and eat the nurse.
Yeah.
You know what this is reminding me of is Altered States. When he... Oh, and this ties into like all the stuff we're talking about. He takes some psychedelics from South America, like some heavy psychedelics, puts himself in a sensory deprivation tank, and when they open it, he comes out like...
Yeah, he's a caveman at the
missing
end.
link. He's all like half monkey, half man kind of thing. He literally devolves. Physically. He transforms physically.
You were so in the wrong section because there's actually a Carl Jung quote. I'm going to talk about that. And it is about... Carl Jung covers this. We can jump ahead.
I will bring it up again when we get there.
I can totally get lost and get to that. I can spin ahead.
That's all right. I'll bring it up again when we get there.
I'll go with the way forward machine instead of the way back machine.
That's funny that comes up later.
No, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. We're going to just figure it out.
Let's go.
All right, I'm going to find it.
We've gone off the rails, ladies and gentlemen.
And we're on a crazy train. No, but this reminds me of something that's coming up here. Carl Jung, this is from Adler and Hall, 1976. Carl Jung provided the following interpretation of Nebuchadnezzar. He was turned back into a primitive man, and all his conscious reason was taken away because he had misused it. He regressed even further back than the primitive and became completely inhuman. He was Humbaba from the Sumerian stuff, from Gilgamesh, the monster himself. All this symbolized a complete regressive degeneration of a man who had overreached himself.
Wow, that's so spot on. So spot on with Altered States. I wonder if they based it on that story in a way.
Yeah.
Like a modern version of that.
Now I got hypnagogic next. Hypnagogic upon sleeping, hypnopompic upon waking.
Because the hypno is the sleep.
Right.
I always forget which is which, but it's right on that, again, on the edge
border.
of sleep, on the edge of sleep and consciousness.
Right, and there's a portal monster when you go to sleep that you have to go through, which is why some people don't sleep, by the way. But counts are lousy.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's a boundary. Every boundary we're going to find monsters.
Because, again, we're slipping between mind states.
Right.
Just like when the skin
Walker
turns into the wolf.
Yeah. You remember MST, Every Country Has Its Monster? Every country has its monster.
I think someone's already made that podcast.
But this one's Every Boundary. Every boundary has a monster. Right.
And is every boundary a portal? That's a real question.
Exactly. It is. As Dr. McCoy once said, the subconscious mind is a tricky thing. He said that in some episode.
Damn it, Jim. I'm a doctor, not a portal.
That's right. Exactly. But basically, these half creatures and therianthropes are also showing up at these half states. Alien abduction scenarios keep coming up for dream paralysis. The story with the tent last week, last smoke break.
Yeah. Last week for them, an hour ago for us.
She totally describes a dream paralysis scenario where she can't move.
Yeah, that's a pretty intense story, yeah.
Yeah. So spontaneous trance states. Ooh. Roughly 2% of the population can enter a shamanic-like trance state spontaneously. If you add these last three together, a lot of people have some similar. 2%.
2%.
Yeah.
That's actually higher than I would expect, honestly. That's
Yeah.
a decent amount of people can do that.
It's good for fat and milk ratio, too, as I find. But this is also that INFP, INFJ stuff we're talking about. We're not going to get back into that, but I think that's all related.
Yeah, you told me I had superpowers.
You do, because you are an INFJ. You're an INFP.
I do have perfect timing.
Yeah.
That's my superpower.
But here's a clinical psychiatrist account from the western area of the Navajo Nation, which is not what you were talking about, the eastern being the spookier.
Eastern is definitely the spook.
So here is this person's account. We mentioned this, Corey Daniels, last week in his blog, an examination of the Skinwalker phenomenon of the Navajo peoples of northern Arizona. Whether or not these creatures, this is again from a clinical psychologist, whether or not these creatures actually exist is irrelevant to the harm they do to the psyches of the people who believe in them. She primarily treats Navajo clients at the local tribal clinic. She relayed to me that within 3 to 4 visits, 50% of her patients will usually admit that their problems may indeed be related to a skin.
Walker.
50%.
Wow.
You know, that's your DSM-5. If we did that in this area, half the DSM-5 would be, well, that's your Wendigo right there.
Wow.
That's a huge number. She says that actually that's what he says too. That is huge. She says that the belief is so pervasive and widespread across the reservation that is a real problem, and whether or not these creatures actually exist is irrelevant.
Right.
The damage they are doing is real. A couple of beliefs in
Walkers.
Did it again. With the pervasiveness of witchcraft on the reservation, and much harm can be done to the people's mental health and communities.
And that's a great point, because it's like the whole placebo effect. I read a thing recently. I was in the book I just finished reading. They did a test with schizophrenics. Mm-hmm. So that kind of feeds into what we're talking about, the schizophrenoform.
Mm-hmm.
They had a new drug that was supposed to be helpful for them.
I want a new drug.
And they did a test with the drug and a placebo. And the placebo was more effective than the drug.
That's incredibly
The simple
common.
fact that people taking it thought it would help made it help. If you believe in something hard enough, it becomes real. And like he's saying here, the simple fact that they truly believe that this is a thing that could be affecting them, who cares if it's actually real? Because to them it's real, which makes it real, right?
Yeah. The placebo effect is always what you're trying to beat in any kind of trial and study, and it is a tough thing to beat. Like, you actually have to be more effective than placebo to be relevant, and the placebo effect is strong.
Your brain, directed properly, is way stronger than any drug you're going to take, is what I think that means.
But as Steve Martin said, it's actually pronounced placebo.
Placebo.
I'm taking this wonderful drug. My doctor prescribed it to me. It's called placebo.
It's placebo.
But those out there doing podcasts, I think it's also a warning to those out there doing podcasts, because we heard one recently together. We'll leave it nameless. But they were kind of poo-pooing. The skeptic of the crew was poo-pooing the whole, well, they don't even believe that anymore out there. Like, why are we even talking about this anymore? And I think it does a disservice. We knew that as we heard it, as we researched this more.
Dude, I'm a white guy that lives in Arizona, and I was kind of upset with the way they were talking about the cultural things of the Southwest.
Or what people believe or don't believe. I mean, just proceed with caution, because
it's like no one believes in that anymore. And it's like, have you been here, dude? Have you talked to anyone in northern Arizona? Because people definitely believe that still.
They are convincing us, not the other way around.
Yeah.
So I want to just shift to the mythic, and this is where you got to reel me in, because it's one of my favorite sections, and we want to get feedback from folks if it's not one of theirs, and if we got to keep things moving along. But
or we have a 3-hour episode. Either way.
Yeah. What had a 3-hour tour?
3-hour tour.
Gilligan's Island, the spider and the volcano. It all comes back to that.
We just loop around on ourselves on this podcast.
No, loop we said is east of here.
Leupp.
Yeah,
loop.
Leupp.
If you want to find that on the map where we're talking
Good luck with that. Good luck Googling that shit.
Right.
But people can experience a spiritual crisis. What happens when a shaman has one?
Oh, boy. Vader.
The shamans were often the leader, exactly, and the heads of the community. Now they're going, and I put the Sith. Exactly.
Oh, the Sithserer.
The Sithserer.
That's exactly what we've been talking about. There you go.
Well, here's Roger Walsh. If you ever want to read one book on shamanism, he has a really good one. It's called Shamanism. That's all I wrote. Wait, it's right here.
It's called
Can
Shamanism.
Can I reach for it?
Yeah, dude.
Oh, wait. No, I think it's in the bag of books that we dropped in the closet.
Do you want to go get it?
Yeah, just wait. You tell a joke while I go get this book. How many shamans does it take to screw in a light bulb?
How many shamans does it take to screw in a light bulb? They don't need because
to.
They live in the dark.
They do it. No, they do it with their brain.
Oh, zero.
It's the world of shamanism, new views of an ancient tradition. Roger Walsh.
New views of an ancient tradition. Okay.
Yeah, it's a great one. He has kind of a transpersonal slant, so he's friends with the consciousness gurus like Ken Wilber and whatnot.
There you go.
Get a chance.
Well, that's how you get to write one of those books, right?
Well, I mean, most of the shamanism ones, they did the whole Native American. This is.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So there's the real deal folks who have done it and been there. I think this is the best you can get from the white dude
from kind of the outside world anthropologist.
As close as you're going to get. I think he does a great job.
Okay.
Here's a quote from him. This dismemberment experience is similar to the Tibetan tantric practice of Cho, CHO. Here, practitioners cultivate detachment and compassion by deliberately visualizing their bodies being dismembered and offered to hungry demons to eat. But whereas the tantrics, these experiences are voluntary visualizations, for the shaman, they are involuntary trials. So the difference between the meditator is that the folks in the East are going up and they have this consciousness piece that they have to go through, and they're meditating and they're visualizing, and these things are happening, and they're still pretty intense per meditators. But
they kind of have control of it.
Yeah, there's something different between the shaman, who maybe an ancestral spirit says, hey, come here, Bobby. We're going to take your part, strip you to your bones. A bunch of things are going to eat you. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine, Bobby.
Real trial by fire kind of stuff.
Go somewhere else in your mind, Bobby.
Yeah. And that's part of it, I'm sure, is being able to detach your mind from the experience.
The surrendering to the experience is the part of it.
Oh, there you go.
Common dream.
When the monster's at the door. Yeah.
Right. What we talked about with the snake and actually just being swallowed by it and succumbing to the experience. But you are stripped to the bone, torn apart. Speared is a piercing thing that happens a lot with these things. So you're perforated, you're stripped to the bone, you're reassembled. That's the twice born.
Like the Jesus's.
It's the second coming, exactly.
Yeah.
It's that shift into that next level of consciousness. And but without a guide from a different culture, now today, what's happening to these folks? Does it go into madness? Does it go into sorcery?
Right, because there's no one there to show them how to focus it and how to control it.
Right, and even even the tribes are not having as many people understand, and it's been kind of a degradation of it for centuries, pretty much.
That's sad.
But the two main types of branches of helping spirits, again, are these nature deities, often in the form of animals, these totems, or these ancestral spirits. But what happens if there's no one on Earth to kind of show you through these doors and what's happening?
The actual physical presence of someone to help you through, yeah.
This would be horrifying. And again, we find the edge of the shamanic initiation. What do we find? The boundary. We find monsters.
That's where you get torn apart and put back together.
Can we sing the MST thing one more time, or should we just move on?
I'll edit it out later. And there we go. And it's edited out.
No.
He didn't even sing it.
We'll sing it later together.
Okay.
But here's something I thought of recently. Do skinwalkers recruit their own? When people disappear, are they out saying, are they actually looking for you? I mean, Cisco's story is somewhat shamanic adjacent.
He might be a shaman that just doesn't know it.
Well, I mean, yeah.
That's definitely a possibility with him.
Yeah.
No doubt.
So in some ways, he turned a corner, but at the same time, would he have been recruited to some darker path if he kept going?
Oh, yeah.
People disappear. We don't know what happens to them. So like back to Campbell and Jung, there's consequences for ignoring, not heeding the call, is what they call in the hero's journey. So you kind of ignore it. You keep streaming Hulu. What happens if you're a shaman? You were supposed to save your community, and now you're just slinging and pizza and hub grub. Right? I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't know you're a shaman and no one tells you you're a shaman, how do you know to follow the path of the shaman?
Right. We're not getting a lot of guidance.
Yeah.
And if something like this happens to you...
And the fact that you should be and aren't can actually have serious detrimental effects from what we've been learning.
Right. It's a heck of an initiation.
Yeah.
It is the most intense in many ways, in my opinion. So I snagged this from werewolfpage.com. I would like you to read, if you would.
That's a great website, werewolfpage.com. I love it. All right. The werewolf is basically a universal myth. In Mexico, the most widely spread version of the werewolf is the one called Nahual. Yeah, Nahual?
Yep.
Which comes from the Nahuatl, the ancient language of the Aztecs, becoming thus the universal language in the pre-Hispanic world. The word Nahuali, meaning warlock. Since the Spaniards did not bring much on werewolves after colonizing Mexico, the ancient local legends on the subject became predominant. The Nahual was a warlock who had the capability to shapeshift at will into an animal, here we go, preferably a black or dark coyote. It was believed in the pre-Hispanic times that people were constantly threatened by these evil beings. According to modern-day Mexican indigenous beliefs, the Nahuales can shapeshift by performing any one of the following: jumping over a wooden cross, getting into deep sleep, putting on an animal skin, or covering their bodies with an ointment made of herbs. Not everyone can achieve the transformation. Just a few ones have been nature-granted with the capability to perform the change. But they also need to be skilled warlocks or sorcerers, or Sithsorers. These legends also tell about the way to kill a Nahual, or Mexican werewolf. Stoning, or gun shooting. They can also be killed by using holy water, fire, or by hanging them. Yeah, there's a lot of correlation there. The whole, I don't get the wooden cross thing, but the getting into deep sleep, changing the mind state, and putting on the animal skin, I mean, that's straight up skin
walker
stuff right there.
But they say warlock, but I think they're talking about a shaman.
And again, that's the term we're using, because in the end, they're all kind of fulfilling similar functions for their culture kind of thing.
And the ones that don't, that seek personal power, stir up some trouble.
Right.
And then,
although I don't see the ash thing in here. That's always been the biggest thing in the
Evil Dead series, yes. Ash Williams.
Northern, or the central North America, I guess, and what's now the United States, those, that's the ash is like the big weapon to use against these guys.
It was his boom stick.
Yeah, my boomstick. This is my boomstick. I think it was just boomstick.
Yeah, I like boom boom.
Yeah,
but
boom. The boom boom room. Everybody likes the boom boom room. That's an old one. That's before my time even.
Well, I got one from
that's a Moz joke.
There's a Moz joke. But we're going to go back to Corey Daniels one more time. I want to actually give mad Cujos out to this guy because I'm going to quote him a third time.
Corey Daniels wins this week's Mad Cujos Award.
Damn boy!
Yes, I used firsthand a personal account from him, a theory from him, so I got to give him some mad Cujos.
Sweet.
According to what was conveyed to me by a Navajo gentleman one evening over a campfire in Wickiup, Arizona.
Been there.
When a bad witch... There's actually really good cheesesteaks if you stop on...
Seriously?
Yeah. It says Beer Garden is all it says.
Yeah.
When you pull over on the right if you're coming from Vegas.
Yeah.
Anyway, really good cheesesteaks. Like better...
I know exactly the place you're talking about.
Yeah.
I didn't realize there were good cheesesteaks in
Yes.
there. That's hard to find out here.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We can end the podcast now and just...
I need to go get a cheesesteak. We'll be back in like 8 hours.
But when a bad witch chooses his way, he will begin walking the dark path. Whereas not all his deeds will be bad, he will have these leanings and will increasingly choose this path. His practice in bad work will increasingly become evil as he pushes the boundaries and becomes corrupted by these energies which feed his selfishness. before he can become a skin.
Walker.
However, it is said that he must perform one last deed. He has to kill a blood relative. From this, there is no coming back. This act kills what is left of the part of him that is human, to which he truly belongs to the dark. Shortly thereafter, powers will creep in.
The dark isn't right anymore. He belongs to the Sith.
Sithserer. To gain power of the skin,
Walker.
including shape-shifting and invisibility. Often you will be taught by another skin,
Walker.
but sometimes the power just comes and you become one on your own.
Ooh, kind of like with the shaman, it can just happen to you without you even looking for it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so much worse on the Sith side here.
But I find that's what's happening with the sorcery and the degradation of it is if you lose this teaching path and you don't have any guidance, it becomes this individual effort. But even the shaman was morally ambiguous. Like they could be good, they could be bad, they could be sisters, they could be help. Most of them were good and they helped their community.
Right.
But it was morally ambiguous kind of thing. And there's another reason.
But not inherently,
Yeah, there's another reason it's morally ambiguous. It's kind of, those are pushing through the third way, and it's actually, they just do what they feel they need to do in the moment, and it can be perceived as good or bad. Many times it's neither.
It just is.
It just is.
Yeah.
But when colonization came in, the dualism piece, it became more associated with the devil, and it really put it into more of that category,
right?
Which we'll kind of get to.
Because that's demonizing the indigenous peoples by making their most powerful people just inherently bad.
And that happened everywhere. Like everywhere I'm reading, I know it's not a surprise to many of you who've looked into this, but everywhere they came in, they were demonized, they were subjugated. If the women were in charge, they just demonized them and pushed them out. And then you get your Monongol.
Turn your competitors into the monster.
Right.
And then you win.
Yeah. And then over time, we see the damage that came from that.
Mm.
And there's also this wounded man, this is shamanic, this theme keeps coming up over and over again. If you fail the test, when initiation the demons pull you apart, but does anyone put Humpty Dumpty back together again?
So he was pushed.
Yes, and that wall is still haunted. Actually,
yeah, I bet it is.
We're gonna do a lockdown by that wall, and we're gonna do. I got all my equipment.
If the poem is correct, all the king's horses and all the king's men could not put Humpty Dumpty back together again.
Which is why he still haunts that spot. Yeah. But there's a wound associated with shamanic initiation, and there's a wound that won't heal. It's kind of like the Fisher King in the Arthurian legend. I
only know the Robin Williams movie.
It's close enough, But Terry Gilliam, I shouldn't say that because I never know what Terry Gilliam's doing his own thing. So the other theme is therianthropes. Myth and shamanism is lousy with therianthropes, as we keep seeing. It's like a trope. Common entities encounters, especially on the right, such monsters guard the world tree, the levels of consciousness, back to all of our boundaries, all of our consciousness levels. There seems to be these half man, half beasts everywhere.
Yeah. All the way up to Bigfoot, potentially.
Right. Bigfoot's half man, half beast.
Yeah,
he seems to have all the same kind of back to
appears and disappears, and yeah.
Exactly. So back to Hancock and with shamanism, which we always have to come back to Graham Hancock a little bit. As for the monstrous half-man, half-beasts, therianthropes, the shamans believed that to enter the other world, they had to adopt various animal forms, and the paintings depicted them at various stages of transformation. So the caves, and again, we see...
That's your cave painting. They're actually trying to tell us about the transformations.
Right. So we see ones that are full animals, we see ones that are more like men, we see ones that are therianthropes. It's the whole spectrum, basically. Owl man, the source of our lion man, bison man, Aurochs. The supreme images of the caves are unmistakably those of supernatural beings of spirit, or ancestors depicted them as therianthropes and fully transformed animals, because this is exactly how they encountered them in their visions, how they continued to be construed and depicted to this day by the shamans of surviving hunter-gatherer cultures all around the world, and later. They're still shapeshifters, and that they frequently appear in the therianthropic and animal form. That's supernatural, Graham Hancock. which we both own that book, but you have the hardcover.
Yeah, and you're so jealous.
I
can't believe how jealous you are just because I have the hardcover.
Well, it makes me a little sad. Little parts of me die, but we'll trade it at some point. We'll have to figure out how to sweeten that deal.
That's a first edition hardcover Hancock. That's not going anywhere except my shelf.
All right. Well, we'll just see about that, won't we? So
maybe by the time I'm dead, it'll be worth something.
and you need a signed edition.
Oh, I do. How do we get an interview with him is what I want to know. We make 200 episodes and become popular.
You just got to stay overnight. By tomorrow, we'll be fine. We'll just call Graham tomorrow.
There you go.
Like, hey, we have 7 episodes in the can.
He seems like a cool dude. Maybe he'd come on.
The last 3 are kind of incoherent.
Yeah, we don't know what the hell we're doing yet, but maybe he'll come on anyway. He seems like a nice guy.
He seems like a nice guy. So, but for the anthropological take, there's also that I want to get to. I don't think it's a coincidence that our creepiest entities on the planet are associated with shaman. One more Hancock quote, we'll move on. If we scratch at the surface of any religion deeply enough, we will sooner or later come to shamanism and the distinctive supernatural realms and phenomenon that shamans everywhere encounter in their visions. Mm-hmm. I have found that in my studies that I keep coming back to shamans already. So
a lot of people will probably get mad at me for this, but when you really look at the correlation, the Jesus story and the shamanic myth are so similar. Like, Jesus was a shaman, if you really look at...
There's a piercing, spirit destiny.
Right. The transformation, the acceptance of his end in order to transform.
Yep. It's very Gnostic of you,
Yeah.
But
I was raised by recovering Catholics.
There you go.
As they call themselves.
There you go. But also the cave paintings of the sorcerer, Trois-Filières. If you look at that, it looks just like a shaman. That's in our supernatural books there.
That's what the antlers
mine's
and stuff,
the paperback. Right? Yeah. Well, it's like an owl face. It's going to be okay. We're going to get through this as friends. But it's a kind of an owl face, and it's kind of a person, but it's kind of in morphing transition with antlers.
So really chimeric. It's bird and deer and man all at the same time.
Yeah, and it's like one of the first paintings given to us by the distant past. It's potentially the oldest one.
Right.
And what is it?
Oldest one we know
we're
of,
talking about, So the older tales from folklore aren't necessarily evil. I found an old Blackfoot legend of a man who was helped by wolves after his 2 wives conspired to trap him down a hole and leave him for dead.
What did he do?
I read the story.
Both your wives get together on something like that? He did something bad.
I don't think he did. They conspired against him because they were bored. They didn't like the lifestyle. He moved out of town.
That's nasty.
The story is he moved out of town and they didn't like it, so they're like,
I totally expected him to be the bad guy in that story, but I guess I had it wrong.
Nope, they set up some leaves. They know where he used to break, and he'd sit down by this little rock up on the mesa. So they just made a hole, and they just pretended his normal spot. He went up there and just fell down in this hole. So wolves keep him alive.
Wow.
And then he starts running with the pack, and he turns into a wolf, like he's part wolf and part human. And then he starts stealing meat from the village. So they actually capture him one day. So he just explains, it's like, oh, why? This is what happened.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. So they actually side with him, and then the wives are offered to the Aikunakatse, the compatriots, and they're actually sacrificed to these creatures that come and take the wives.
Comeuppance. I love stories with comeuppance.
They got some comeuppance in that one. And there's a Zuni folklore of a woman who was saved by a white wolf who returns to her village after she was kidnapped by Navajo raiders. Near the end of her life, she crawls off and shapeshifts back into the white wolf to return to her pack. So they kept her alive. She goes back to the village, and she returns. We see that return.
So there's the helpful shapeshifter.
Yeah, it's not just... I wanted to kind of throw that out there, that there's two
interesting.
sides
It's
of
a
this.
white wolf, though.
Yeah.
And not a black wolf or a darker brown wolf like you would normally see.
And that's the name of the book, by the way. It's White Wolf Woman by Teresa Pigeon.
Oh, there you go.
And the story is called Ghost Hunter. If you want to learn more about some of those stories from that, it's a great book. I think I found that one in Flagstaff Library recently. But all the helpful shamanic practices have their darker counterparts, depending, of course, on intentionality. As noted by many scholars, things seem to get worse after colonization. Maybe some beings of power who went south would not have done so, minus the shit sandwich they were served by.
The oppressive colonizer.
Yes. White man came across the sea.
It's amazing how much bad you can create by doing bad.
It doesn't help. It really doesn't help. But here's a counter theory. Since shamans were believed to be stronger in the past, as mentioned in various places in my research,
Walkers
attacks were much more savage back in the day. And the story goes that today's version has devolved from more cold-blooded killers into more trickster-type antics.
So it's like the magic is fading on both sides.
Yeah, I don't know where I remember reading this, and I guess it's going to be an old business moment, but there was actually, they had competitions back in the day where the shaman would turn into different things. They would do all these amazing feats. They would fight each other and show their test. It's almost like the air shows of today. You just all go out and see the shaman do stuff.
It's like going to the football game or something.
Yeah, right. So if they were the good ones, like, hey, look what we can do, there was actually a darker counterpart that was probably stronger that they had to fight.
Sure. Well, it's the yin-yang for everything there's an opposite, you know.
But I can't imagine, things getting any worse. Like, I think I look at the image of that thing out in the res today, and I can't imagine something hundreds of years ago that's more powerful.
Right.
It's like, that seems so much worse to me. Do you want to Durkheim? Let's Durkheim just for a minute.
I don't know how to Durkheim. How do I Durkheim?
Oh, you're going to learn how to Durkheim. Well, here's Joseph Campbell explaining the ideas of French sociologist Emile Durkheim.
Oh, it's a person.
He argued that the collective superexcitation, sure excitation of clan, tribal, and intertribal gatherings was experienced by every participating member of the group, has an impersonal infectious power, a mana. And this power...
Groupthink, yeah.
Right. And this power would be thought to emanate from the clan or tribal emblem, the totem. This emblem, therefore, would be set apart from all other objects as filled with mana, sacred versus kind of profane stuff. So this totem, this first cult object, would then infect with mana all associated objects through this contagion. It's like mass...
Yeah, it's catchy. The energy is contagious,
right.
Yeah.
Psychogenic illness. There would come into being a system of beliefs and practices relative to sacred things, uniting in a single moral community, all believers. That was from Flight of the Wild Gander. That's Joseph Campbell talking about Durkheim. It reminded me of this Vedic stuff, so I pulled this piece out. Beginning darkness lay wrapped in darkness. All was undifferentiated, aprakita, and salila. Then within that one undifferentiated existence, something arose by the heat of concentrated energy, or tapas. And that's related to, Jung has this thing where he felt the UFO was the next level of consciousness, kind of in a symbolic form that was happening. It was kind of an Ishta Diva of, heralding of the next level of consciousness. So it came in the form of a UFO. So everybody was seeing it because that's kind of
because that would be the next level of existence for us, right? Is going out into space and existing off planet.
Next level of consciousness.
Which, correlates.
Well, it can.
You start seeing reality completely differently when you take on, we're not just Earth people, we're galactic people. You're gonna go through a metamorphosis mentally. You're gonna evolve.
Right, but the Ishta Diva piece...
2001,
The Ishta Diva piece is that you get a symbolic representation of the next level because your brain can't process what's happening. So you get flashes of a symbolic image. So Jung was saying this was the next bursting forth, the next level of consciousness of the humanity. Basically, it was a flowering Age of Aquarius stuff where the next level.
The spiritual evolutionary harbinger.
Right, a harbinger. And that's, again, when we come back to monsters, Ishta Diva, Ishta Rasha. I feel like there's ones at the top and ones at the bottom. And if now we'll see an Ishta Rasha because we're all slipping back into...
Because we're going backward.
We're going back towards the monster at the portal. So I think it's going to be a darker image. Not that a UFO can't be dark, but I think we might be facing a darker one soon enough, is my theory.
Okay, then.
It's a good segue to consciousness theory, which I want to get to. How much time we got? I mean, we're at
however much
7.
we want, man.
But if we're experiencing some type of peak experience, cities, other type of ecstatic vision experience, we are usually talking about an inward experience. Why do so many accounts involve multiple people? And that's the thing that When we talk about the
that's
tulpa,
true.
it takes on this life of its own that kind of interacts.
It's like the shared hallucination thing is very interesting. Like you're experiencing something that isn't even really physically there, but someone else can see it too. That's always the most impressive and interesting stuff to me.
And it seems to spill out a lot. The Ouija one, there was first of all, we just found out a bunch of our friends have Ouija board things that we never knew.
Randomly
we could We only interviewed a few people. We can do a Ouija board episode.
Yeah,
we didn't
we're
know
almost
that.
there already, yeah.
And then recently, I don't know if you heard, there was a bunch of kids that had a Ouija experience. They all ended up in the hospital. Did you hear this? It was
Recently?
Within the last 94 months. I'd say.
Oh, wow.
Ouija board. They all played Ouija. Multiple, like a dozen kids ended up in the hospital.
Wow.
Mass psychogenic illness.
I guess we'll have to get a Ouija episode in sometime reasonably soon. We're pretty well planned out for a while, but get that on the list.
So I think what's happening here, and this is just my opinion, so don't take offense to it, folks, but we have we have Native Americans living here. I think they've created a thought form. This is a reminiscent of Durkheim's collective superexcitation, or this Vedic concentrated tapas. This might answer Knapp's question about how these things always seem to lurk near Native American peoples. If there is truth to this theory, who better than the Navajo to create such a potent, sustainable thought form? Tired, disenfranchised tribe projects their fears out into the nearby desert. Something monstrous in the form of their lost leaders and beings of power, the shaman, crawls back out of the darkness on all fours.
That makes sense. They all have believed it so hard for so long that it has no choice but to become real.
Yes.
Wow. That's deep. That's deep.
There's also, all these groups disappear in the Southwest. Is there an Anasazi curse? The Anasazi were the ones who were here. Okay. Well, before I go then, let's hear what you seem to have something to say about this, which I don't know what you're going to say. I'm just going to stop talking and drink beer now.
I was just kidding there. I honestly think it's just the cycle.
You Anasazi think?
It's the cycle of drought, and it brings up an interesting question because this has happened here a couple times before where they go into these, this 1,200-year drought cycle in the Southwest that we are now hardcore in again. Right. As far as we can tell, the last couple times this happened, everybody just left.
Yeah.
We're not willing to do that anymore. What happens when it hits that point where we really just kind of need to leave and there's like 8 million people in Arizona that don't want to?
Yeah.
That's going to be an interesting moment.
Yeah. The moment is coming very soon. But you're right. Like, that's been one of the major explanations for why people moved around and disappeared, was they were following the game, they're following the water.
Right.
But there's also this lingering Anasazi curse. Anasazi means ancient ones if you look it up, but a Navajo personally told me it means ancient enemy.
Ancient enemy. I've heard that same thing. Yeah.
Verified somewhere. Among the first settlers of Arizona, the Hohokam means the vanished ones. Further south, the Maya also disappeared as well, and that was a huge civilization that just kind of up and
yeah, that's a big one.
Yep. So the shaman class, or many of them, disappeared after the tribes were herd in the reservations. We have another disappearing of movement. With all these entire tribes vanishing, is there an ancient curse feeding this phenomenon?
Yeah, could well be.
And Louis L'Amour wrote dozens of books about the Old West. Do you remember him?
Oh, I've read a number of his books, yeah.
Yes. He was more Zane Grey than Zane Grey was, if that's even possible.
There you go.
But for his last book, he totally shifted gears and did this thing called The Haunted Mesa. He explores the disappearance of the Anasazi, and the book is steeped in Indian folklore and mysticism. He totally went in a different direction. Kind of got interested in the area.
I actually have that book on my shelf.
Wow.
But I thought it was just another one of his novels, and I haven't read it yet.
No,
I'm going to have to go home and read that.
It's a different one. So
wild. I didn't even know that.
Well, we're going to have some quotes from that coming soon. But you poke around the Haunted Mesa long enough, and the Haunted Mesa pokes back at you, I guess.
It's like staring into the abyss, and it stares back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Better nature. So Scully Muggles, let's just talk about what they might be saying. Do we really have to do this? I guess we do. Fear itself.
Don't give those skeptics any. Actually, what it's called is Sir Richard Scully Muggles Skeptics Review.
You're full of crap, and that's the nicest thing that I can say.
What are skeptics saying about the skin?
Walkers.
Nothing. They always say the same thing. Delusions, excitable of the witness, emotional states of the witness, mass psychogenic illness, hoaxing. I don't know. I don't know what they would say as to why.
Well, they would just say that they can't really change and they don't really have powers. They're just crazy people who do want to do bad things. That's what I think it all comes down to.
I think they should go live on the res for a while.
Yeah, right.
And get back to us.
Drive from Winslow to Four Corners.
Walk.
At 3 a.m.
Walk from there.
There you go. In the middle of the night, go walk across the eastern side of Navajo Nation and tell me there's not something weird out there. I dare you. We'll probably never see you again. That's what'll really happen.
And then you could be recruited or eaten.
Yeah, next thing you know, you are the monster.
That's right. So here's my whole guano file.
Oh no, here it comes! Quick, to the batshit signal!
And stick with me on this one. Functioning medicine man, which is what we found from the Navajo res before things got weird. We add colonization. We get this Wetico, this fear contagion, this bad event, these outside coloners. The Wetico, medicine man plus Wetico equals Tulpic monsters. And that's kind of what I was getting at, where this, the fearing time kind of happens. You're sprinkling liberally with some dead baby powder. You blow it in someone's face. You get a tulpa skulking around the res.
Dead baby powder. What? Just every time
It's those Johnson & Johnsons. Looks like there's trouble at the Johnson Ranch.
So the shaman plus fear, basically.
Yeah, you've got this terrible thing.
Equals created monster
this
that
thought
people
form, the
create from their fear and belief.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
So we create our own monsters.
Yeah. I think that's my...
That would make a lot of sense. It really would.
It's not supposed to. It's the Ahu Guano file.
your craziest thing makes a lot of sense.
Makes a lot of sense. So now we have our Scully Mulder believability scale. They feel your methods, your theories are...
Spooky? Do you think I'm spooky?
Wait, why am I Scully? And I'm going to start with you.
I totally believe. I believed before. I believe still. I'm a 10, dude. There's something out there. I've experienced it multiple times.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah,
it'll be more powerful when we hear your story.
Like I told one that is very basic, a little freaky,
today,
but nothing much to it. I have a couple more. My shared one and then my own that definitely convinced me that this is a thing.
That's right. So there's a you and Logan story, and there's your own.
There's the me story, and there's the me and Logan story.
Right.
And they're both hardcore experiences that and it fits. Add up all the characteristics of those two stories together, and it's exactly what we've been talking about these last two episodes.
Dang. And that's what I tried to pick stuff, but it was pretty easy because they follow these themes. If nothing's happening, why does it follow? Right. Why do they fall into these different buckets of similar weirdness? So I said the Navajo take this very seriously. They were driven from their home, predominantly hunter-gatherer society, shifted to agricultural by force into reservations. As a result, many of them lost their community leaders, their way of life, their whole place in the universe. This is what Wetico Tulpic energy kind of angle manifests, I think. And their shaman crept away into the hills, or many of them did, and some resorted to darker Dang, we gotta come on. I want to make this work. I have
Sithsuri, like sorcery is Sithsuri.
I have respect for shamanism despite my new word, and I think on some level some of these medicine men had or have real power. What they can actually accomplish is still an unknown to me, but they are beings of power. I believe that. 10 for 10, I do. But we can also both attest that how spooky this whole area is. And I agree with you that I've jumped. Maybe when I started this, I thought there was something to it. I would say, do I think, again, there's no evidence that someone can physically transform into a creature. That is much lower for me. And I don't even know how to quantify that. Maybe a 4 or a 3. But is there energies out there that resemble that? I would be more of an 8.
So you believe mostly in the power of people to do the power of the medicine man and the shaman, but you don't necessarily buy into the full physical transformation side.
Well, there's even that piece of it that they were more powerful back in the day and that they're losing that. And these stories seem to be more, and I don't know, I haven't heard yours. I've heard the one that you told me, but there's 2 other ones. They seem more cryptoid than cryptid.
Right.
And they seem to shift, and they seem to be more paranormal, and they seem to be strange. And how physical they are is an unknown to me.
Yeah, that's fair. That's totally fair.
Multiple people experience the same thing. I don't deny that. So I think there's a phenomenon happening. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure the physicality piece of it. That's an unknown to me.
Fair
It
enough.
will remain so. So we're going to conclude with our Wolfman Puck scale.
Wolfman Puck's Cryptid Culinary Corner.
Yes.
Your entree, sir.
Smells good.
And do you want to go first?
So we did practice this one, so I know what it is you want
we
me
did
to prepare.
We did our dress rehearsal.
I was very upset with you when you told me that we had to
Actually do this.
Even not us eating it, the Wolfman eating it, the cryptids eating it.
Yeah.
That we had to prepare a Skinwalker.
Right.
Because this is a person, dude. We're not supposed to eat people, remember?
Yeah,
We've gone through this.
This is a fictional segment in a podcast of guys just drinking
And the
beer.
Wolfman is eating it, not us.
Well,
So,
you don't have.
if
you had to prepare,
I just want
for your friends.
I just want it on the record that I'm doing this one under protest. But I'm still going to kick your ass.
All right.
All right. So the only way I could see preparing one of these things for anyone, cryptid or not, I would build a nice big fire out in the desert. And I would strip down the meat. I'm going to try not to think about that process at all. But what I would do is I would strip it up. I would rub it all down real good with sage. I would season it with sage.
Oh, you're doing like a cleansing while you eat.
Yeah. And then I would throw it over the natural fire, which I might actually throw some sage in the fire as well.
Mm-hmm.
And use the juniper wood. It gives a really nice flavor.
So you're using the things that will kill it.
I'm trying to neutralize the
badness.
Negative.
Wow.
Is what I'm trying to do. In the meantime, I'd go out and harvest some wild onions. They grow all over the place out here.
Oh, I have that too in mind about the juniper and the thing. Sage.
Oh, yeah?
No, I don't. But
See, I'm out thinking you, man.
Dang.
But that's the only way I could see even thinking of feeding that to anybody. Cryptid or.
But what are you making besides the preparation? H here.
I'm making barbecued skin.
Walker.
Yeah.
Okay.
With a dry sage rub.
I have to say,
and wild onions. I don't know what. Oh, and you know what else? I will serve it with a filleted, butterflied, prickly pear cactus piece. Yes.
Wow.
There you go. Super local.
Little peyote chaser.
That's your veggie with the onions and the cactus and some saged skin
Walker
meat.
I am making skin blanker stew. Basically, it's not stew.
It's not stew.
Yeah.
Nice.
4 Roma tomatoes, 3 chipotle peppers, and 1 adobe chili chopped. That's the ratio. I wouldn't budge from that. Don't forget chunks of potato squash, plantain, some fry bread on the side. You got to keep it traditional, like at Bojo's. The beer I would pair with this stew.
Oh, I forgot the beer.
Would be it's too late now. No, I'll give you. You can do beer.
Okay, I'll think about that.
I would pair it with Uinta Brewery's Detour. It's a nice double IPA. The brewery named after the nearby Uinta Mountains. It's our other skin
Walker.
hotspot. So it's like a double pairing with a double IPA.
Fair enough. You know what I would drink with it is a chicken killer barley wine out of Santa Fe. You ever have chicken killer barley wine?
Well, I mean,
Do you know why? Because
I'm listening.
on the label, it looks like a dude wearing a sombrero and like a Mexican poncho, the woven poncho, but it's a dog standing up on its back legs.
Dang, you came out again.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to give you
I'm
that.
great on the spot, man. I'm great under pressure.
It's when you think about it, you do terrible.
Terribly.
But wow. So the last time, the first part of this, you came up with on the fly, and then you didn't have a beer because we just started making sure we
weren't even doing that then.
Pair it with a beer is what we decided by episode 2.
Yeah.
And you then came up with that off the top of your head.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite barley wines too. So
Dang, I guess I'm gonna have to give you this one. So sadly.
nice. I still won. Awesome.
But warning, avoid eating humans if you're pregnant or may become pregnant, or you do not want to turn into an insatiable, shape-shifting, therianthropic legend. Yeah.
What if you do want to turn into that though?
Well, then you should just eat what
I should
we
go
talked.
become a skin.
Walker. Make sure you do the chipotle and the adobe peppers to the right ratio.
I don't have that many relatives, and I don't want to kill any of them, so I guess I'm not going to be able to do that.
Yep. Well, yeah, I got you beat there, so I'll see you on the dark side.
You got lots of options left. Oh wait, which one? Can I just kill them all?
Do we have to limit it to one?
Right? Can I just do the whole thing, like all of it? That would make me better. Oh no! What else we want to do before we go here, Maz, and wrap up this skin
Walker,
saga?
I am not done yet.
Oh, you're not? I thought we were done.
What I would like to try to do is always try to end on a real world example. I'm going to try to do this when I can. Going to bring it back home for people.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And this one will leave you stunned and speechless. It changes everything, really. Sadly, I solved a childhood mystery here. It's an exciting moment for MLT history. It's my first.
We're not going Scooby-Doo again, are we?
Oh, gosh, no.
Okay.
Where the wild things are. Yeah. No, wait. Before you say anything, think about it for a second.
I do love that book, actually.
Okay, so just think about it for a second. And I won't say anything. Think about the pictures.
Oh, the kid is transforming. He's wearing the skin.
Walker.
Oh.
Yeah.
He's wearing the animal skin
Yeah.
and dancing with the wild things.
Yeah. He is a child Sither. Now, I'm sure other people have made this connection.
He is a child sister.
Hang on. I will defend my thesis.
He's a Vader in training.
But here's the thing. I know other people have probably made this connection, but I was reading Stephen Asma's thesis on monsters and the moral imagination, and I came across the title, which I hadn't heard in a while. And as soon as I heard the title, the vision of that kid with that suit, he's wearing a wolf pelt. But anyway.
Yeah. And he's even got his head covered and everything.
Yes.
It's like the whole onesie thing.
As soon as I heard it, I said, I have to go back and read the book. And I did for this podcast. It's a quick one. You can read it in an afternoon.
Yeah.
It's not going to take a lot of your time. But here's my analysis. I think Maurice Sendak is the master Sisserer. And just bear with me. Bear with me.
Okay.
So,
God.
image 1, the first picture of the book,
Yeah.
finds Max angry and donning a wolf suit. He's nailing a line of handkerchiefs to the wall with a hammer, creating a makeshift clothesline that is inadvertently hanging his Yek, a dog puppet. If you look at the picture.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. He's also standing on a pile of books, or grimoires, so he's obviously a mage of considerable strength.
Huh.
Second image, he's being completely sociopathic and chasing the family dog around with a fork.
Whoa.
Yes.
The family dog, that would be a thing to become a skin.
Yes. Walker. He's like Ruprecht the monkey boy, you know. And what do we do, Ruprecht? No, we apologize. What movie? Anyway. We'll have that for old business.
Okay.
Let's remember his name is Max, which means mightiest, most eminent, senior, distinguished chief, or he's basically the elder. Now back to our theme of the skin.
Walkers.
Step 1, he dons a wolf suit. Step 2, he threatens the family dog. Step 3, he threatens to eat his parents. I'll eat you up.
Oh my God, he does.
The very act that will turn him into either a Wendigo or a Skinwalker. But he's not an idiot.
Oh my God.
He's going to go the full
Walker.
Texas
Ranger.
Right. That's what this kid's going to do. Then his parents do the worst thing anyone can do for a budding sister. They send him to bed without supper.
Oh.
Bad idea. What were they thinking?
Oh my God. Maz, you're blowing my mind, dude.
Then he has this typical ayahuasca jungle vision in his room as part of this hypnagogic thing going on. The jungle grows in the room. There's no snake.
There's a hallucinogenic side to it, too. Yeah.
There's no. I looked out at that whole.
It goes
picture,
through the portal.
But the big missing link here, there's no snake in any of the pictures of him in the.
They're not even represented in the pictures.
No, it's the only mistake. It's the only what if or question mark I have for Maurice. So he crosses a water threshold beyond space-time, and he ends up in this land of therianthropic beasts.
That's the portal right there when he crosses the water.
And then what color are their eyes? Yellow. The second most common.
Are they really?
Yes. You can read the book. He finds
It's been a while, I'll admit.
half bull, half man, half bird, half man, half rhino, half man. And one looks like Neil from The Young Ones. Seriously. I don't know what that means, but it's true. I don't know how that ties
I don't know
in.
what that means at all.
Oh, you never saw The Young Ones? Oh, I got some
I don't
kids.
think so, no.
You got some kids in the room, some kids in the hall. That's another old reference. Sorry. That's all I do is
Kids
old
in the Hall,
references.
I know.
All right, there you go.
That new stuff was good, man.
Yeah,
A
there
little
you go.
disturbing, but very funny.
Yeah, just like us.
Which is what the Kids in the Hall were all about.
So
That
what
if
we're
you're
about.
not a little disturbed, they weren't doing it right.
We're a little disturbing. And
We are a
funny
little
too.
disturbing, yeah.
But in that moment, basically he then controls them. He says, "Be still," he says, and tames them with the magic trick. In that moment...
And there's your sister power.
Yeah, he asserts his power. In that moment, all the creatures gnash their terrible teeth and their terrible claws. They become his yeks, his eiklas, his familiars. He is the king of the wild things.
Wow.
Then they all start to do the wild rumpus, which for lower energy...
Let the wild rumpus start.
Exactly. And I think that's an energy realm, lower energy thing for an orgy, is my theory. So it's a bestiality reference.
It's orgiastic.
That I missed as a child.
Yeah.
I completely missed that reference.
Orgy doesn't have to be a sexual thing.
Right over my head. Yeah, it could just be a ritual.
And, enthralled to dancing all night long is very orgiastic.
But a dance ensues, which is inducing a further altered state of consciousness. We're totally in this ritual.
Yeah.
Then he doesn't partake in the food there, because if he had, he would have to stay there. They all go to bed without supper.
Oh, what's that connected to? If he eats there, he has to stay. Is that do you know of
any
any
fairy
connection?
ring, anywhere
it's
you
a
go,
fairy
any
thing.
underworld, anytime you go to the other world, you don't
right.
partake of the food, or you have to
Or
stay
you
there.
become a resident.
Yep. He says he embarks on the journey back, to where he's loved most of all, is what he says. So it sounds like he's journeying back from hate to love,
From
right?
hate to love, man. That's the road we're on here at Monster Lore.
He's not. Listen to what is actually Maurice Sendak is saying. I know you fell for that. The problem is he's really driven by hunger. He smells something tasty across the sea. I mean, this kid is already primed to slaughter a village of sand people, like you mentioned earlier.
A Wendigo.
The
he wants to go eat human flesh.
Well, we can argue maybe we got to put this out to folks and they can make a decision. But hunger's driving him. That's the trickster urge, and he's being driven back by hunger, not love.
I guess everything else does point to the skin.
Walker,
Texas
Ranger
thing.
Yeah, that's my opinion. Sendak claims the journey back took a year and a day, yet his dinner is still warm. Why?
Time travel.
Sendak the sorcerer hits you over the head with it. Max is still in a wolf suit. The moon is still full when the boy returns. Presumably
And it's a full moon?
Yes. Well, there's actually
And he's in a wolf suit on the full moon?
There's actually, if you look at the book, there's
Therianthropic.
witches' room. There's a couple of crescent moons and a couple of full moons. So it also doesn't make sense.
Oh, so the moon goes through phases too, huh?
And it's the two you would expect to have
That's going
trouble.
to take some more study.
Witch's moon, full moon. Werewolf, witch. Werewolf, witch. He hits you over the head with it.
Okay.
And when he gets back, presumably his dog is still hanging in the closet.
So what is the combination of a werewolf and a witch? It's a skin
Walker
that can change back and forth
Right.
like a werewolf, but has the powers of the witch.
Yes, exactly. And when we come back, where's the hugs and kisses and getting tucked in the bed after this long journey? Where's the family dog? There's nothing there except a plate of food.
Does he eat it?
Max stands alone with his power. I think that he ate the flesh of his kin, and he's now consumed utterly by the dark side. Oh, we should have had
and he's become a full-blown Sith-er.
We should have put a parental warning on this probably before we. Yeah,
I can add that in.
Is it
later.
too late? Yeah.
I think that kind of comes with the whole podcast, honestly.
Yeah, I think any human should
we swear
probably
a little
just
bit. We
not
get into some
watch
dark
this
stuff.
or listen to it
Yeah,
or whatever you guys are doing.
It's definitely PG-13 at least.
Yep. But I think we solved it. Mr. Perkin Jenkins, for Where the Wild Things Are, is Max, the child skin
Walker.
Where the wild skin thingies are is what that should be called. And I think Maurice Sendak has some splaining to do. I mean, I love that book. I read it to my kiddo.
I loved that book. That was my favorite book for a good while when I was a kid.
Because we like the Monster Lore tour, even as kids.
Yeah, I've been on this Monster Lore tour since I was a kid, and I've been on it my whole life on this tour, going down these roads.
I feel it's changing. It's changing what I think about my youth, and it's making me a little scared, a little sad.
Yeah,
that's what we do. That's what we do here.
Like, it's the subtle influences, those societal indoctrinations and stuff. I definitely got a weird side of that, I think.
Yeah.
Because now that you give me all that about that book, it kind of explains me a little bit.
Yeah. I'm both.
I've been into this stuff before I ever even realized it.
Yeah. I think there's a lot more going on with this book than meets the eye.
I'm going to have to read that again. I got to get a used copy of that at Bookman's or something.
Yeah. Yeah, well, good luck with that, because it could be a dark grimoire, and you could end up, I don't know, it could be a gateway book, So that's what I got. That's what I'd like to end on today.
Crazy, man.
I'm sorry.
You do strange things to my brain, Moz. Can we get out of here now before you make me totally weird?
Yep.
Oh, wait.
Oh, no, wait.
Oh, wait.
Oh,
I had an episode coming up.
Bookstore, 2 days ago, found the sequel to Goodnight Moon. It's Goodnight Sea Monsters. And it is so bizarre because it's saying good night, and it's going back through all the ancient fish that could eat you back in the day.
No way.
I'm not kidding.
Did you buy it?
No, but I think it's by the same Goodnight Moon people, which is again
too funny.
A little. We got the moon going. We got some. Now they're just coming out fully and everything's dark. All the pages are the dark green, dark blue of these monsters. It's like Megalodon. Good night, Megalodon.
Oh, you so should have bought that.
But if you get a chance, I'll maybe do a Good Night Sea Monster segment at some point.
Oh, we got to get our hands on that.
I read the whole thing because it's like as long as Good Night Moon. Like I could do it while I was waiting to open. I was there before it opened, and it was when they put the books outside. I was reading it before the place opened.
Too funny.
Good times.
Anywho, all right, can we get out of here now?
Good night, Moon. Good night, Skin.
I got Walker. Monster Lore Tour Podcast. The first reported encounter with the creature came from a man named
Jeb.
Ooh, a man named known? What?
A man named Jeb. He's a poor mountaineer.
I'm going to have to edit the shit out of this. Let me try again.
Barely kept his family fed.
Shut up!